disturbing story as to how the security forces had to release 12 militants belonging to a banned militant group called KYKL. And this incident happened in Manipur's Etam village after a mob of 1,200 people who were led mostly by women targeted the area, and they prevented the security forces from carrying out the combing operation. Now, this KYKL group is a militant Methi group which has been involved in a number of attacks, and they were also responsible for the ambush of the 6 Dogra units in 2015. And after this incident happened, the defense PRO said that this incident showed the humane face of the army. Of course, if the defense PRO is saying that it is a humane face of the army, where are the tough questions as to whether at all accountability should be fixed for an incident like this? Releasing 12 militants, what does this show about what's really happening in Manipur? All this and much more we'll be discussing over the next half an hour or so. And I have a very special panel. We have with us former Major General Ashok Mehta with us. Thank you so much for joining. We have Suhas Chakma, who is a renowned activist and who is also the director of Rights and Risks Analysis Group. Suhas, thank you so much for joining. And we have our senior journalist, Samir Purkastha, with us. Samir, I'd like to begin with you. And what really happened in the Etam village of Manipur yesterday, which led to the releasing of 12 militants? What actually happened?
See, on a tip of a group, the army had cordoned off this Itham village, and they had a specific information that one KYKL, this group was taking shelter there. Particularly, this, as you mentioned, this KYKL group was led by one Lieutenant Colonel Thamba, who was a prime suspect in 2015 ambush on 6 Dogra, wherein 18 soldiers were killed. So when they had a specific tip-off, and when they went there and found these guys, the army took those guys into their custody and also seized some arms and ammunition. But while they were trying to bring them out of the village, lots of villagers, around 1,200 to 1,500, mostly women, they surrounded the army and prevented them from taking further action against those militants. And under pressure from the civilians group, the army had finally had to release those 12 militants and came back with the seized arms and ammunition. So, and after this incident, today we are, hearing that APSA, Armed Forces Special Power Act, which was, enforced, which was in Manipur since 2004, but was withdrawn partially from certain areas. Of course, this village in the Imphal East district was not in the area where APSA is not in operation. This is within the APSA territory, because APSA has been withdrawn from 7 valley district, 19 police station areas of 7 valley districts, and but certain this in the valleys, also certain foothill areas are in certain foothill areas APSA is still there. So in these particular village areas, APSA is still there. But after this incident, we are hearing that the army, there is talks about partial lifting of APSA, temporary reimposition of APSA in Manipur, because even there has been lots of complaints by the security forces, wherein they are finding difficulties to carry out operation because of these public pressures. And many a times their movements, because now they are they have to carry out operations under CRPC. So and this entails this call for this thing, informing magistrates, local police stations, So it's a very long drawn, cumbersome process through which they now have to go for this combing operation, search operation. And there are, this thing, there are a school of thought which are saying that, in this long drawn process, the informations are getting leaked.
Absolutely.
So, there are these talks of at least temporarily reimposition of APSA
Okay.
in certain disturbed areas
Right.
of the state.
Okay. Let me come to Major General Mehta now. General Mehta, I really want to understand from you that the Defense PRO saying that releasing the 12 militants shows the humane face of the army. Now, would you really agree with what the Defense PRO has said? And shouldn't the army be held accountable? What does this really show? Doesn't it show a lackadaisical approach?
Um, this is a very tricky operation and a very tricky subject because historically, I've known the Northeast since 1959 when I was a young captain, and this these tactics of the village uh, to when a cordon and search operation is carried out. What happens traditionally is that the women get out and they either form a human shield or they encircle the security forces. Now, you can act like my lie in the Americans, what the Americans did or what they did in Afghanistan. But Suhas Chakma will agree that that will be a blatant violation of human rights. And I am happy to say that the army has learned a lot about human rights. I mean, from the days when we operated in Nagaland and rest of the Northeast, we didn't understand human rights. We hadn't heard the word human rights. We had only heard what security rights, my rights, the rights of the soldier to carry out military operations. So we have reached a stage in the Northeast and especially Manipur because historically, again, while the rest of the Northeast, if you look at Mizoram, how Mizoram, where the conflict resolution took place and not conflict management. You look at Nagaland, where a lid has been put with the 2015 Framework Accord, and it is Manipur principally where the government and the security forces have been unable to bring the situation under control for a variety of reasons.
Right.
And I would put number one right on top the political imperative of whichever government is at the center, because there is absolutely no reason why the situation was allowed to drag into the situation where we had these 12 militants from a banned outfit which has its base inside Burma, released by the army, simply saying that if they carried out a humanitarian act, I mean, they had no choice. So for the situation to have reached in a month and a half, I think 3rd May till today, hundreds of lives have been lost, thousands of people have been displaced, and the enmity caused between the Kukis Omi and the Meiteis, the majority and the minority, the plains people and the hill tribe, is something that has happened after 1990, but is I think has taken a far more serious coloring because of the external factors and the political factors. So therefore, um, uh, we can come to what needs to be done. But the fact that this Manipur has degenerated into lawlessness, there's no governance, there's lawlessness, and this represents the complete failure of what the center calls the double engine government. In fact, it's a double engine failure, and I feel very sorry that even on the part of the army, uh, what the army did 2 years ago for its own reasons because of the situation on the line of actual control, two divisions of the army were taken off internal security duties, and the entire area was handed over to the Assam Rifles. These two divisions were part of the rebalancing to the north, the LAC, and in this handover, this was then done during General Narvane's time, and he, in fact, at a seminar that I conducted a couple of months ago, he said this, and they had not foreseen what would happen. The other point that needs to be made is that Assam Rifles has been here for a long time. And I have no grudge against the Assam Rifles. They come under operational control of the army. But somehow their reputation in that area has been tarnished. Uh, it has been tarnished because of alleged alignment with one of the two sides, with alleged involvement in narcotics, with alleged involvement in illegal immigration. And one of the reasons why that ambush was carried out by KYKL against six Dogras, I believe, was because of the involvement of not the local unit so much, but the narcotics angle.
Right.
And the coup in Burma has resulted in a lot of people now coming into. So you could not have a more dangerous recipe for disaster than what you have today.
Right.
And the amazing thing, and this is amazing India, that we haven't heard a word said by our great leader, by the supreme leader who has won accolades in the United States, while almost like Nero, playing
Okay.
with the fiddle.
Right. Okay. So let me come to you, Suhas, now that releasing the 12 militants is really not as what the defense PRO is saying, that it was a humane face, and it basically shows that they were running out of options. It basically shows that they were not prepared, and it also shows that they are not still prepared to tackle the situation on the ground. What would you really say if you see this as some kind of a malaise which is existing in the Manipur society at the moment?
Well, it basically indicates that Manipur is Somalia of India, that the army, which had captured this KYKL cadres, had no option. They had not done it for humanitarian purposes. If there were no riots, they would have massacred the people. But the situation is so sensitive at this point of time that if you take actions against the civilians, especially the women, the riots will continue, and situation will go out of control. And it's basically the mobs which have taken over the entire state. And so you have a situation where the security forces cannot even arrest certain people, and at the end of the day, whether you have APSPA or no APSPA, they could have taken these guys and hand over them to the police, and they didn't want to do that. And also it's partly because the central security forces in Manipur are seen to be partisan against the Manipuris by the Meiteis. And we always forget one side of the story, that 1,500 sophisticated arms, including LMGs, grenade launchers, etc., we are lost by the security forces. So you have a massive, arming of the civilians. So you could say that it's about 1,400 arms of the government of India, of the state of Manipur, are floating around. And I think this is one particular situation which indicates that they are not going to find a solution. At the moment, what we have is the enforcement of the law and order in Manipur, meaning in the Imphal Valley, is done by the police, which is biased. Then the enforcement of the law is done by the Assam Rifles and the Indian Army, etc., in the hills. Once again, the Meiteis accuse them of bias. So you have a situation where people from one side cannot visit the other side, and it's a disaster. And it's, in a way, there is no understanding of the situation. What are you doing at this point of time?
No, but Suhas, if you look at the all-party meeting which happened on Saturday, where Amit Shah met all the leaders of the opposition parties, and the opposition parties did suggest that, there should be a presidential rule, and there should be an all-party delegation which should be sent to the state. Do you think all that is going to resolve the problem, or the state completely needs a different approach altogether?
Well, at this point of time, I don't think Amit Shah wants to impose president's rule, because if the president's rules fails to improve the situation, the liability will come on him. So, and he knows it very well that in the valley, there is no control of the police, and in the hills, there is no control of the security forces. And all party delegations will not be able to resolve the root causes of the problem, which is Cookies demanding separate territory, and the Meiteis refusing or insisting on the territorial integrity, and everybody is playing their own politics. But there is a de facto division of the state, because Kuki officers cannot serve in the valley, and the Meitei officers cannot serve in the hills. So the state has been divided, and Mizoram is being used as the transit road between the Cookies and rest of India. And the last point which I wanted to mention is that apart from the protest which started over the scheduled tribe status and etc., as General Mehta had said, there is an influx from Burma and etc. What are we doing? The government of India has been funding and arming the junta, and junta has been driving out its own population, 40,000 plus in Manipur. We do not know how many thousands in Manipur, and 40,000 in Mizoram. So what are you doing effectively? India is basically importing the troubles in Myanmar by funding and arming the junta. And you ask anybody in the MEA or anybody in the Home Ministry, is there a coordination to realize this particular aspect? No, there is no coordination. So it's like a chalta hai. See, chalta hai, it can go on in mainland India, where topography is completely different. But once you enter the Northeast India, the topography is suitable for the insurgent groups, and you are not going to control it, because the Meitei insurgents now are involved in it, and Kuki insurgents are also involved in it. So I don't think it has become a full-blown counter-insurgency operation. So the riots have become now, with the involvement of the insurgent groups, they have become full-fledged insurgency war. And we have seen that, in Manipur, despite the deployment of thousands of troops, you could not bring the situation under control, and you are not going to bring it sooner. So that is why they don't want to impose president's rule, because president's rule means either Home Minister or the Prime Minister being directly liable, although you need a face different from the Chief Minister, and the fact that they had to include the Chief Minister in the peace committee headed by the governor, it was a mistake.
Right.
The governor was not given a free hand.
Right. On the chief minister bit, I wanted to ask Samir, but before that, I'll just go to General Mehta. General Mehta, I really want to know that once, these militants are released, like what it was done yesterday, what kind of an impact a psychological impact it has on the army personnel who are working in the disturbed areas. It's just not about Manipur. It's about other states also which are disturbed, which are the conflict zones. What kind of an impact will it have on the army personnel?
Certainly, it indicates the constraints of carrying out military operations in Manipur, and especially in a Manipur which has now been driven by ethnic divide, as indicated by Suhas. Um, the it impairs the morale that you've carried out a military operation, but in the end they would have taken orders, because the only way to get those 12 militants would have been to use firearms or threat of firearms. And that could, as I said, lead to a malaise situation. But if I can make, uh, you see, the immediate need is now for semblance of law and order, and you cannot allow this lawlessness to continue and for the situation to degenerate on the lines that it is degenerating, i.e., the Kuki Zomi, the tribe, the hill areas, and the Maitis on the other hand. The Nagas are still neutral in this, uh, but they could always gang up with the hill tribe against the Maitis, against whom they have had problems. Uh, we are yet to see the roadblocks that will come in of the national highway. I think the Maitis have threatened, as they have done before, the students' union to block the highways to Manipur. And this is not the first time this will happen. This has happened in the past. And, I've been, I know the lay of the land, because I've served in 1959. Then I was a general officer commanding in Manipur in the 90s, and my headquarters was in Imphal. And one of my brigades was there. And I was there 2 years ago or 3 years ago in Bishanpur. Bishanpur has a very interesting history where the Indian Army fought, my battalion fought one of the most important actions on the road from Bishanpur to Imphal. While the two-pronged attack, the Japanese had mounted one towards Kohima and one towards Imphal. And my second five Gurkhas won two Victoria crosses at Bishanpur. And I had gone to see those areas 3 years ago, and things appeared normal, but people there told me that don't go by appearances. There's a lot of lawlessness, extortion, and all kinds of things happening uh, in Manipur. And in the old days, the governors of Manipur used to be generals from KVK Rao, and they were all generals. Still, they found that they were at the bidding of the center, and they were required to do things that no army, no soldier will do, which is completely dishonest. And they were asked to do those kind of things, whether it was the old government or the new government. So, in short, I would say that to bring the semblance of law and order, you have to remove the distrust, the extreme distrust between the two warring communities. And the way to do that will be whether it will be by central rule 355, by bringing the central forces and bringing the army back. Because without the army, this situation will not be brought under control.
Absolutely.
And this situation has to be brought under control. These two communities will not trust either the Assam Rifles or the local police, as has been explained earlier. The army is the only instrument that can bring a semblance of law, and then we can think of other solutions like borderland or hill district autonomy, but it is not possible any longer for the current state of Manipur to be governed in the present shape. There has to be political alteration in the governance uh, to accommodate the wishes of the minority and the majority.
Yeah. But Suhas, there's another question before I come to Samir. Shouldn't we be raising this question that as to under which laws have these militants been released? Because the government is totally silent. Defense PRO has just given a soundbite or a statement saying that it's a humane face of the army. But under what law have the militants been released? Is there any clarity on that? Would the government not want to say anything on that? How will the accountability be fixed?
No, I don't think there is any law. It just it was commanded by the exigencies of the situation, as stated by General Mehta. But in any other situation, I think what the rule of law has become the victim, in the sense that when 1,500 arms were looted, allegedly looted, or lost by the security forces, nothing was done. And when people came back and deposited their arms, there was no verification whether the ammunition which were there in the arms were used, and now you have this situation. So this in a way indicates complete lawlessness. And I think if the government wants, it can bring the situation under control. I mean, we are into the, at this point of time, 50th day of the conflict. And why couldn't the army flag march? 355 was imposed on 6th May. Obviously, this has failed. So why don't you impose 356 and bring in the army and conduct flag marches? It's absolutely possible. But none of they are not willing to do that, because it would mean taking some measures against the chief minister and his groups. And there is so much of internal infighting within the BJP. They are not able to do that. And please remember, all the Kuki MLAs, they belong to the BJP, 8 of them. Right. So it's an internal problem of the BJP also. So that's why they don't want to take and let it continue like this. But this will have other consequences, because it's absolutely possible that in the conflict will extend to other areas, because the amount of hatred and distrust is just unbelievable, unseen kind of a thing.
Right. Samir, my last lap of the questions is to you now. What is really happening with the state leadership? Are we going to see a change in the state leadership? Biren Singh had come to meet Amit Shah, and the all-party meetings, there were demands that there should be a president's rule, there should be an all-party delegation which should be sent. What are you hearing from your sources? Is there going to be a leadership change? Are you hearing anything on the president's rule, like what Suhas was saying, that under 356, why can't there be a flag march? Are you hearing anything of that sort, or there is a complete reticence on the part of the government?
See, yesterday after Biren Singh met Home Minister, he was asked to hold meetings with the CSO, civil society organizations, and sort out matters. But immediately after he went back, this Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum, which is organizations of the Kukis, they refused to have any kind of negotiations with Biren Singh. And now we hear that the center has asked Biren Singh that you look after the valley and the Home Ministry will look after the hills. Will you settle the things in the valley, which is indirectly saying that you are no longer the Chief Minister of Hills. We will take care of the hills. So this is also a sort of no confidence on his leadership.
What is stopping the central government from removing Biren Singh? It's not that they have not removed chief ministers earlier. They have done that. So what is stopping Amit Shah from doing this?
There, as Subhas pointed out, there are internal, within the BJP, they have certain reservations in removing Biren Singh. He still enjoys majority support within the BJP legislature party. So, toppling, removing Biren Singh might have a impact on the BJP's political. It might have a political implication for the BJP, particularly in the majority-dominated valley. So, and another thing, as Subhas again pointed out, that center also knows that situation has gone now almost out of control. It is very difficult to now quell the situation. So why to take the blame? So they also need one bad guy, and Biren Singh let Biren Singh play that role. And when I was in Imphal and talking to ministers and all, so one ministers of the record said this conflict will continue for 5 years at least. So this is a kind of situation. So that is so the center also knows it's not that easy to now sort out things, because for that they will have to either they will have to concede to the demands of the cookies, which is a separate home administration, and if they concede the demands, there will be again major flare up in Meitei areas and also in Naga areas. So there are lots of complexities. So, and nobody wants to bail the cat now, and that's why
the complexities you're talking about, Samir. Has the situation reached a point where nobody can tackle the situation right now? Neither the central government, neither the state government, neither the army?
No, the situation, first BJP will have to sacrifice their political interest, because they will have to put the interest of Manipur first, but which is not happening. So first step should have been to sack Biren Singh, remove Biren Singh, or they can have someone from the BJP within the Meitei BJP leadership, Meitei MLAs. They can have someone to lead the government, and who has there are many Meitei MLAs, existing Meitei MLAs who has some sorts of acceptability in the hills. So if the leadership is given to any of them, I think at least this negotiation process can start. At least the people will sit together, and this dialogue process can take off. But that's not happening, because BJP fears that in long term, if they antagonize Biren Singh, it can have a larger political ramification as far as the BJP is concerned. And that is why they are willing to give him such a long rope.
No, but Samir, people are also saying that BJP does realize that, of course, it is really burning its fingers with Manipur, but the impact of Manipur and other northeastern states, is the BJP not worried? Manipur, of course, is just 2 Lok Sabha seats. But what about the political loss in other northeastern states if Manipur has an impact on other northeastern states?
See, so far political, we are not seeing that any kind of whatever is happening in Manipur. It's not getting politically reflected. BJP is not getting much adverse, political reaction in the other areas except for Mizoram. Mizoram, of course, because with the Kuki communities in Manipur, they have lots of ethnic affinity. So in Mizoram, of course, it's a different ball game, a different kind of situation. But apart from Mizoram, we are not seeing, huge hue and cry over what is happening in Manipur in other northeastern states. So BJP that way feel quite comfortable.
Right. Okay. So let me take the concluding comments now from Suhas and General Mehta. General Mehta, I'll come to you. 45 seconds to you, sir. What would you really say to the situation which is panning out now, and what should the government do immediately? Yes. General Mehta?
Is that for me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, the situation, from what I hear from my army colleagues, is so bad that it has the potential for drawing in the Chinese as they were there in the 80s to fish in troubled waters. And the revival of insurgency in the northeast is a distinct possibility because the Naga Framework Accord is in a limbo and it's unlikely to be resolved in the foreseeable future. So, unless the central government puts a lid on the current situation, and that lid is, however uncomfortable, however unpalatable politically for the government, 355 has to be imposed. They have to sacrifice their political interests for the larger interests of the Northeast. And law and order has to be reimposed. And as I suggested earlier, that the army can be drawn back temporarily. 3 Corps is headquartered in Dimapur. It has the instruments, it has the wherewithal to do so, and it must be seen to be doing so because the people must, who have lost confidence in their local security forces and the paramilitaries and will only trust the central forces, I hope, they can bring the situation under control. And then there is the larger question of a political resolution. You cannot have this situation where periodically there is this the distrust between the two communities erupts into violence. It happened in 1990. It happens periodically because of the roadblocks for little issues, and so therefore they have to. The government, central government, has to think about some kind of conflict resolution through a political solution, and there are options that are open. We have seen this. The
Absolutely.
central government
Yeah.
is very good at this, and they can do it.
Right. So, Has, last comments from you. What would you really say? Yeah.
I think BJP has been campaigning that they have been very successful to bring development in the Northeast and resolve the political conflicts in the region, including signing up the framework agreement, even though it did not lead to the effective peace agreement. But with this particular incident, it will not only affect Manipur, it will affect all other peace processes because the officials and the ministers are hesitant to touch anything on the Northeast. So Northeast is going to be on the back burner for a long time. The second issue is if you put the long term at a back burner for a long term, it will have consequences on the insurgency and development. And as I said, the problems in Myanmar and the problems in Bangladesh will pour into the northeastern region. Last point, which I wanted to say, there are about 1.5 million Rohingya refugees. They will not be taken back by the Myanmar's government. Then what do you have? The Bangladesh cannot fund them because the UNHCR and others will withdraw. So you have 1.5 million people just ready to explode in Bangladesh, in Northeast, and etc. And the security establishment is not taking care of it. But there is still time. If you remove the current chief minister, you put a face and you could start the negotiation process, because when I speak to the Métis, they know that they are not going to be scheduled tribes.
Absolutely.
Most Kukis know that they are not going to Kuki land because separating a state is not easy, because even the Nagas have not been successful. So what is missing here? The only missing point here is somebody who could be trusted. And the only person who could be trusted at this point of time was the governor. And the governor, I think the initiative which was taken by the Home Minister to establish a peace committee by the governor was excellent. But you do not make a peace committee of 20 people. It doesn't work. The governor should have been given the charge with 5-6 people who are not touched from either side. it could have moved in. And the moment you brought in Biren Singh, because being the chief minister, he had to take all the responsibilities. And he's no longer acceptable, not only the cookies, not also to the mates also. So unless you remove him, it will continue.
Right. And it's not that the government doesn't realize that continuing Biren Singh is actually playing with fire, but it's complete lack of political will, a lack of approach, and a deliberate lack of approach, I would say, that the government is adopting towards Manipur, which is leading to such a big crisis in Manipur. Thank you so much, Mehta, Suhas. It was wonderful having you on the program. Samir, thank you so much. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion, stay tuned to the